Huh? What are you doing in my swamp?
Hello everybody, this is Overboy and I'm going to be doing my ranking for my top 10 worst movies of all time. So last week I started a new series where I do a top 10 ranking each week, and last week I did my top 10 favorite movies of all time, so I thought this week I'd do my top 10 worst movies of all time. So this list was actually fairly easy to make because there's not a lot of movies that I don't like. Or that I would consider to be this bad to have on this list, so I just went with movies that I just can't stand. I'd like to give a dishonorable mention to the movie Gotti starring John Travolta. I've only seen it once, but I absolutely hated that movie. It's the one movie that John Travolta's in that I didn't like, but since I've only seen it once, I decided not to include it on here because all these other ones I've at least seen a couple times. For the most part and everything, so I thought I'd go ahead and get going. Coming in at number 10 is Man-Thing. This is a Marvel movie that didn't go to theaters. It's the only TV movie on this list, but it was originally supposed to go to theaters, and the test screening was so bad that they decided just to dump it on the Sci-Fi Channel, and it is a terrible, terrible movie. By far the worst movie that has ever been made that I've seen out of a Marvel property. I know there's probably a few other ones that I haven't seen yet, so if that could change, but for right now this is the worst Marvel movie I've ever seen. It's got a terrible story. The character of Man-Thing is not done justice at all. I don't know much about the character, but I know enough to know that this movie is nothing like what the character is supposed to be, and it's a terrible movie. And as somebody who loves horror movies, this is one of the worst of these comic book movies that have tried to throw in horror elements too, and it actually has an R rating and some violence and stuff, but the CGI and stuff on the monster just looks terrible. The kills are forgettable, the story's forgettable, the acting sucks, the dialogue is terrible. It's just an all-around terrible movie. So Man-Thing is number 10, and number 9 is movie 43. This is a movie that is barely even a movie. It doesn't really have much of a story. It's this guy that's pitching all these different short films to this film producer, and you see like all of these different little skits and stuff. It's a terrible movie. Each skit gets worse as the movie goes on, except for maybe one that was actually somewhat funny, and it's not a very good movie. I didn't really like movie 43 at all when I rewatched it. The first time I saw it, I liked it a little bit when it first came out, and it's really showed how much I've matured, because this movie is just very immature and stupid. I don't know why I used to love this movie. So movie 43 is number 9, and number 8 is Thanksgiving 3. I absolutely hated this movie. As someone who loves the first Thanksgiving, which is in itself not a great movie, it was made to be a bad movie. This one was also made to be a bad movie like the first one, except the humor is just not as well written. The jokes and stuff don't land as much because you could tell what they were trying to go for with the first one on being a so bad it's good movie. This one, they just kind of went all out on the bad and forgot about adding the stuff that makes it cleverly funny and stuff, and it just is a terrible, terrible movie. I didn't get the humor in this one at all. The horror elements were not very good. It was a pretty bad movie. I like the concept of it, that the movie skipped its own sequel. I love that kind of stuff about it. I think that was kind of cool, but it's executed very poorly, and Thanksgiving 3 is just a bad movie. So it's number 8, and number 7 is The Jungle Book from 1994. I've never liked this movie. It's one of the movies from my childhood that I don't get it. I don't get the love for it and what people see in it. I don't think it's a very good movie. But I don't really like the take they go on it with this movie, trying to make it feel more like an Indiana Jones style movie, and it didn't really work very good. But the movie is pretty forgettable. It's just bland and boring. It has some decent moments at the beginning of the movie when the tiger attacks the camp. I do love that scene and everything. My aunt freaked out when we first tried to watch this movie when I was a kid and wouldn't let me watch it for years, so I didn't see it again until I was in my teens, and I was like, I really didn't miss out on this. The villains are not that great, the story isn't that great, it just isn't a very good movie. So The Jungle Book 1994 is number 7, and number 6 is Dark Crimes. This is a Jim Carrey movie that came out a couple years ago, and to be honest, I don't remember hardly anything about this movie except that it had some crazy nudity at the beginning of the movie, and that it's painfully slow and boring, and that's really all I remember about the movie. I don't even remember the story very well. I think he's like this investigative reporter or something or investigator that's like trying to solve these dark crimes or something. I don't remember. It's just not a very good movie, and I've seen it a few times because I've watched it at least 2 or 3 times when I've watched Jim Carrey stuff, trying to give it another chance, and every time I watch it I like it even less. It's just a very, very forgettable and bland, terrible movie. So it's easily makes this list. So Dark Crimes is number 6, and number 5 is the Emoji Movie. I absolutely hate this movie. Somebody who's a big fan of animation and stuff, there's not very many animated movies that annoy me enough that I could say that are this bad, but this movie is just god awful. I absolutely hate this movie. The story isn't anything new. They totally rip off movies like Inside Out and Wreck-It Ralph and stuff like that. You could tell this was trying to be like a combination of the two of them, with the emojis representing emotions from Inside Out, but it being set in a phone, so it's kind of like Wreck-It Ralph in a sense, which Wreck-It Ralph 2 did a similar story to this and did it way better. Although that movie itself isn't one of the best either, but this movie is just terrible, and it stars TJ Miller, who I absolutely hate. I've never been a fan of TJ Miller. He's always got on my nerves really bad, and this might be the worst movie he's in that I've seen, because I think this is the only one where I've actually seen him be the main character, and he's just a voice, but he still gets on my nerves really bad in here. And James Corden, who I usually take up for and defend and stuff, he's even annoying in this movie as the high five guy or whatever. And the biggest insult is you get Sir Patrick Stewart in here doing the voice of a piece of poop. It's just totally insulting to Patrick Stewart and everything. It was crazy. That was a crazy year for him. He gave one of his best performances in Logan, and was in the worst movie that I've ever seen him in, this one. So but yeah, the Emoji Movie is number 5, and number 4 is A Nightmare on Elm Street from 2010. I've seen this one a couple times too. I saw it when it first came out and really didn't like it, didn't plan on ever watching it. I rewatched it to do a review for it a couple years ago and hated it even more, and unfortunately I'm going to be rewatching it soon, because I'm going to be starting my Nightmare on Elm Street re-reviews soon, or I might have already started them because I'm filming this video before I would be filming those videos, because I'm filming it about a week in advance. So yeah, I can't stand the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I think it is just a really terrible movie with the cast is just not very great. Jackie Earle Haley tries his best as Freddy, and I think if he was given a good script and they actually used practical effects on him and stuff, and actually let him be his own Freddy instead of trying to replicate Robert Englund, I think he could have been an okay Freddy. And the whole pedophile thing, I didn't really like that. appreciate they were trying to do something different with the story, but the way they executed it, it just didn't work. And I just really don't like this movie. The kills suck. There was a lot of terrible CGI in this movie, and it's just not a very good remake. I know there are some people that would defend it and even say that it's better than some of the sequels. I personally don't think it's better than any of the previous Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but I don't get the love that this movie does get from its little fan base, but to each their own, I guess. There's movies I like that a lot of people don't like, so I can't say too much on it, but I don't like this one very much. So it's number 4. And number 3 is Pete's Dragon from 2016. I grew up watching the original Pete's Dragon as a kid. Even though it wasn't from my time period, my family loved this movie. A lot of them grew up with it. So the original I watched all the time as a kid and consider it one of my childhood favorites. This one, I can't stand it. It took everything that I loved about the original and just took it all out. And what we get is this dark and depressing movie that's supposed to appeal to kids somehow. I don't get how it's so dark and depressing. I don't get how it could appeal to anybody. And the original did have a lot of dark stuff in it too. There's no lying on that, but it also had a lot of really good moments. There were some really fun musical numbers in the original that helped the tone of the movie, which it is kind of all over the place in the original, I'm not gonna lie, but it works the way it was made. And maybe that's nostalgia talking too, but it does work. This movie, it doesn't work at all, and I can't stand this version of Pete's Dragon. I've only seen it once and everything. It's one of the few that I haven't ever gone back and rewatched, and I probably never will give it another chance because I really hated it. I didn't really even want to see it the first time I saw it, but I ended up giving it a shot just to see what it was like, and because I wanted to review it at the time. It was before I really started doing movie reviews on YouTube. I just did them in my Facebook group, and I really did not like the Pete's Dragon remake. It's not very good. Maybe I'll revisit it sometime and review it and see if my opinion on it's changed, but for right now, I can't stand it. And it's number 3. And number 2 is Ghostbusters Also from 2016. Now, when these movies first came out and I first saw them, I probably would have said I think this one was the better of the two. But rewatching it and stuff, I changed my mind. I rewatched it back before Ghostbusters Afterlife came out because I wanted to do all of the Ghostbusters franchise, and I was like, I'll go ahead and watch it one more time to review it, and then that'll be the last time I watch it. And it is going to be the last time I watch it because it is so terrible. The only thing that I can really say about it is that the actresses in the movie have good chemistry with each other, and you could tell that they were having fun, but that's really the only good thing about the movie. The story itself is not very great. They could have done something way better with this. We had to get this movie to get Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is a shame because that movie is great and everything. But if there is anything good about it, this movie flopping did lead to that, so there's that. But yeah, Ghostbusters 2016 is just not a very good movie. Most people I know can't stand it. I don't hardly know anybody that likes this one and everything, so it's easily number 2. But my number 1 worst movie of all time is Grease 2. As y'all know, I absolutely love the first Grease. In fact, last week it was in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. This one is easily my worst movie of all time. There are worse made movies out there. And there's probably some that didn't even make this list that I probably could have put on here that I just didn't think about putting, but and there are even worse made movies on this list, like Thanksgiving 3 and Movie 43 and Man Thing and stuff like that. They're worse made movies, but this is just the movie I just hate. Like everybody has that movie that they can't stand, that just the thought of it annoys them and stuff. And this is that movie for me. I can't stand Grease 2. It was just one of the worst sequels of all time. Actually, to me, it is the worst sequel of all time, and it's just a really terrible movie. So, Grease 2 is easily the #1 choice for me on what I think is the worst movie of all time. Now, like I said, there are worse made movies out there, but it's just my personal one that I hate the most. But anyway, let me know in the comments some movies that you hate. I'm sure there's some out there that I love that y'all hate, and vice versa. I'd love to hear some of y'all's top 10 worst movies or whatever. If you don't want to do top 10, just tell me a few of them. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.